The game starts out with a boy we later know as ICO being banished from his village because he has horns. These horns are seen as a bad omen of sorts, and due to this, he is taken to an abandoned castle and locked up forever. Luckily, ICO manages to escape fairly easily, only being locked up for what seemed like 5 seconds before I was able to take control and start this platinum journey. I spent the first 20 minutes figuring out the controls for this game because even though I was playing the remaster, the controls still felt a bit outdated. Once I figured it out though, I made my way up this super long stairway where we can meet the main companion of this game, Yorda. To free Yorda, you have to flip this lever and make your way all the way down the staircase to save her from the shadows. These shadows were the main enemy throughout the game, and although they do no harm to you, they try their best to take Yorda away from you, and if they succeed, you do fail. It is here that we unlock our first trophy of the game for rescuing Yorda from the shadows and escaping the area. This was a short-lived victory though, as unless you constantly call Yorda to follow you, she would just stand in the same place you left her, eventually getting taken by the shadows. After restarting my game and reaching the same point, I sat on this bench in order to save my game. This would be a continuous thing to do throughout this game, not only to create a save, but to also earn the trophy bench warmer for sitting on all 14 benches. After defeating a few more shadows and warming up a few more benches, we eventually reach the main gate. And while at first it is open, the gate quickly shuts and we end up meeting the main boss of this game, the Queen. After finishing this cutscene and lighting all the pillars, we can earn another trophy for meeting the Queen. This is where, for me at least, the game really started to pick up, as we were tasked with reopening the main gate. To open the east gate, we had to make our way through the graveyard. This was actually where I experienced my first death due to jumping in the wrong direction and slamming my face into the wall. There would be a few more deaths in this run, and as you may have guessed, there is actually a trophy for not dying. However, this game only saves a death if you choose to continue, rather than exit into the main menu. So basically, every time I messed up, I would just have to reload my previous save and try again, which, to be honest, was actually pretty lenient compared to death-related trophies in other games. After trying again, I managed to defeat the shadows and progress onto the next area, which had a lovely bench waiting to be saved on. The next few areas went pretty well, as I managed to figure out a trick to do with Yorda. If you manage to reach the door before the shadows grab Yorda, she will blast open the door with her powers, which will conveniently eliminate all the shadows in the area, which is super handy. Eventually, we made it to the most important building on the east side, called the East Arena. Using a piece of wood as a torch, I opened the first door of the arena. This, of course, had a bench waiting outside for us, but more importantly, allowed us to climb up the ladder and light up the next door in order to obtain the sword. After grabbing the sword and escaping this really poorly made trap, another trophy popped. This room actually gave me some trouble the first time around because of the outdated movement in this game. If you stop moving ICO, it usually takes a step or two before he actually stops moving, and in an area like this, you can probably see why I struggled a bit. Eventually though, I made it through the climbing section and turned the water off. This allowed Yorda to make it up the slope with relative ease, and eventually create a path for us to open the final door of the arena. As you may have guessed, this earned us another trophy. The journey to the West Arena was actually going pretty well, until I was stopped in my tracks. You need to jump on this log at the correct time in order to be propelled into the air and move on to the next section. The issue was though, I just really couldn't do it. I blamed it on the controls, but I think it was more of a timing issue on my behalf. You have to jump just as the pillar is moving downwards, and after multiple failed attempts, I finally got it. In this area, there was a missable trophy for grabbing a secret weapon, and what I found really cool was that returning here on New Game Plus would not only give you a different weapon, but also unlock another trophy. To unlock the trophy Spiked Club, you have to hit this tree to receive what I believe was an acorn, but looked more like a massive stone boulder. Then, you have to push your way through the secret entrance and stand on the pressure pad to activate this square box thing. With the ball in my hand, I essentially had to chuck the ball into the box to receive my weapon, which was easier said than done. This literally took me 10 minutes, and as much as I've grown to love this game, I have to blame this one on the controls. The only way to throw an object in this game is to be moving in that certain direction, meaning you cannot be stationary when you throw the ball. It left me with about a 3-second window of turning around and moving forward before I either threw the ball or it's too late and I'm too close to the box. After multiple failed attempts, this happened. All I had to do now was turn the water off and make my way to the next area to earn the trophy. After climbing 1,000 feet in the air and blowing up this structure, we finally made it to the West Gate Arena. This is where we can sit on the final bench to unlock the trophy Bench Warmer. Now in the home stretch of opening the main gate, we just had to open all 3 doors within the arena by flipping a few levers and dealing with the swarms of shadows. I had a pretty close call in this area because, as I mentioned previously, if you're not with Yorda for a long period of time, she'll get jumped by the shadows. And conveniently placed in this area is a barricaded door that, of course, you have to leave Yorda unattended on the other side. To open this door, you have to go into another room, which I believe triggers the game into thinking you've left her. After grabbing the bomb and making my way slowly back, Yorda makes this noise. This means that one of the shadows has her captive, and if I'm not fast enough, it essentially means restarting from my previous save. Luckily, this time around, I managed to save her from the depths of hell, and to thank me, she created a path allowing me to pull a lever and light up the final door of the arena. After leaving the arena, the trophy unlocked for opening the West Gate. All that was left to do now was to open the main gate and finish the game, or so I thought. Watching this cutscene unlocks another trophy. And if you didn't really understand what just happened, because I didn't either, the Queen uses her powers to turn Yorda to stone, which is why she drops ICO and cannot move. After this, we enter my least favourite part of the game. Due to no longer having Yorda, it is impossible to save my game, and that meant for the whole time, I was constantly being cautious of my movements. This water area in particular had me climbing a bunch of stuff without falling off, and it took me so many attempts that I just stopped recording until I made it past, just to literally die in the next area and restart all the way back before the cutscene. Luckily though, after a few more attempts at the water area, I managed to return back to the same spot before climbing down this tower and stumbling across the Queen's sword. This sword was really cool to have as it allowed us to use the light, which is something only Yoda was able to do before. We can now open these big doors with the sword, and in doing so, unlocked another trophy. After this, we see Yoda, still turned to stone, surrounded by shadows, and ICO just couldn't let that slide. We are forced to eliminate a ridiculous amount of shadows before filling up all the stone coffins, and allowing us to enter the final, and in my opinion, best fight of the game. This fight was actually pretty fun, even though it wasn't super hard. To beat the queen, you have to use the sword to protect you from the waves of darkness, and hit her shield before running back behind a pillar, while you search for where the sword has landed. After repeating this a few more times, her shield breaks, and ICO claims his first victim. ICO loses both of his horns, and I actually thought he was possibly dead at this point, but by defeating the queen, Yoda is freed from the spell and saves ICO in her shadow form, sending him off while the whole castle is falling apart. Eventually, ICO washes up on the beach, and after strolling around for a little bit, feeling empty inside because I thought Yoda was dead, something white caught my eye in the distance. This unlocked both Emancipation for finishing the game and Unscathed Escape for finishing the game without a death. Now, all that stood in my way of the platinum was a 2-hour speedrun and 2 miscellaneous trophies. I actually presumed this would be pretty easy, but I could not have been more wrong. 2 hours is genuinely not enough time for this trophy, as the current world record stands at 1.5 hours. This meant that for the casual player like myself, having literally 29 minutes spare compared to the genuine world record was practically impossible. The only way I managed to get anything close to this trophy was to watch the world record footage as I was playing the game. This was actually going pretty well in the first half. I figured out a few new tricks, like right here, you can leave Yoda and go off on your own adventure, skipping literally 30 minutes of game time by looping back around and grabbing her a bit later. What I came to realize during the speedrun is that the shadows only trigger when Yoda enters a certain room or passes a certain point in an area, essentially meaning that if Yoda stands in the correct spot, you can just do the majority of the game without worrying about the shadows. The graveyard is a good example of this, as by having Yoda stand on the stairs, you can focus on other things before purposely making the shadows spawn in. After making it past the graveyard, I was well on my way to earning this trophy. I made a bit of a detour at the waterfall to save my game a bit earlier on, because I wanted to grab the second secret weapon without damaging my runtime. To earn the trophy Shining Sword, you have to do exactly the same as before. Hit the tree, open the secret door, and throw the ball into the box. This unlocked the secret lightsaber, and it pained me to finally unlock this just to earn the trophy and restart from my previous save without the weapon unlocked. After opening the west side gate and making it back to the main gate, my final save time was 1 hour and 21 minutes, leaving me just 39 minutes to finish the remainder of the game and watch all the unskippable cutscenes. I made my way through the water area, slayed the queen in literally a minute and a half, and painfully sat through the final cutscene and long credits before washing up on the beach for one final trophy. To earn this trophy, I had to grab the watermelon only available in New Game Plus and make my way over to Yoda to hand it to her. In hindsight, I shouldn't have attempted this, as ICO walks super slow while holding the watermelon, and the timer I had previously set on my phone was telling me I literally had 2 minutes remaining. I eventually made it to Yoda, unlocking the secret ending, and painfully sat there while the trophy started to pop, just praying I had made it with enough time. I just want to point out that the timer on my phone told me I'd beat the game in 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 26 seconds. So if I was literally 34 seconds behind on anything throughout my run, I would not have earned this platinum. All in all, this game was actually pretty good. The controls feel a bit outdated, and I do think the story could have been explained a bit better, but if you can look past it, I think you'll have a pretty good experience.